live and work and survive inside of a tiny little space. The beautiful aesthetic, beautifully lit vans, that can't be real. I just don't think it'll ever be real. Hi Big Lap Bible, my name is Hannah and I am from @HanTravelsSlow on Instagram. My beautiful fiance Chris is behind the camera. He prefers to be more of a background kind of guy, and I appreciate him a lot for that. We are from Darwin. We've been living and working in Darwin for the last 7 to 10 years, but we're from Melbourne originally. I've been travelling Australia for most of my adult life and have completed like 1 to 1.5 full laps of Australia. And now I'm in Tasmania. I met my fiance in Darwin and managed to rope him into coming on this trip with me, and we are pretty much open-ended travelling. We work remotely and that allows us to just sort of travel at the pace we want to travel at and for as long as we want and kind of just wherever we want, so we're very lucky. My decision to do a big lap wasn't really a decision at all. My parents took me and my brother out of school when we were 10 and 11 years old and took us away for 3 months, and we went up the middle and round the side, and kind of ever since then it birthed this obsession with travelling in me. So doing a lap is kind of just what we're doing at the moment, but travelling has kind of been a massive part of my entire adult life. My life before this specific big lap of Australia was my first time working as like a real adult job. I got my master's degree in digital marketing after having studied like a whole bunch of other stuff, and I was working with mostly musical groups up in the Northern Territory as a digital marketer and graphic designer and photographer and videographer. I get to do lots of very fun stuff, and my fiance worked as a scientist with the government. And we've been lucky enough to be able to take those jobs more or less with us and incorporate them into our travel lifestyle and our big lap lifestyle, and we consider ourselves extremely lucky to be able to do that. Our preparations for this specific leg of our lap were a bit crazy because obviously we were up in the NT and we had to transition our jobs into remote work and then drive down the centre of Australia in a burnt out RAV4 to get to Melbourne where my family live. There my dad and my mum helped us get our caravan, which we bought sight unseen off Facebook Marketplace, all renovated and ready with electrical systems that were going to help us with our remote work and travel. Other than that, it was really just kind of like get down, get south, get out of the territory and get to Tasmania, which is where we have started our big lap this time around. Our setup is very basic. We bought our 2011, I think, Jayco Dove Outback pop-top camper trailer sight unseen off Facebook Marketplace, and my dad went and picked it up for us in Melbourne. It's a bit dingy in places, but it has been everything we've needed to live comfortably, work comfortably, eat healthily, and do all the things that we need to do while we're traveling. Our car is an absolute old dunger. It's a 2010 maybe Mitsubishi Pajero Exceed, and it has been through the ringer. It's had a lot of work done to it simply just to make it run. So we really don't have that aesthetic van life lifestyle, but we are very grateful and comfortable with our very simple setup that supports everything we need to do. So choosing the right setup for us was a lot about making sure we were both really comfortable. We are massive sooks of the cold, but we also hate towing big trailers and caravans and things like that. So something small was a must. Something that we could have a heater in and have indoor eating and workspaces was an absolute must, particularly in Tasmania. It's impossible to get anything productive done sitting outside. So that ruled out rooftop tents and things like that for us. Also ruled out the massive like 4-wheel caravan situation because I could never reverse that. Budget was also a massive concern considering we are part-time working remotely. We don't have the ability to pay off a big, finance on a big caravan or something like that. So our entire setup is south of 20 grand, which is amazing. I would have had it cheaper, but you still need creature comforts and things like that. So it's been perfect for us. We don't really have anything to complain about. I would love to make it prettier, but other than that, it's just been so comfortable. The only thing we would actually change about this setup is potentially getting a new car. We've had a lot of issues with our very old, potentially once waterlogged Mitsubishi Pajero. My dad, who is a diesel mechanic and just mechanic in general, has done endless hours of work helping us get it at least roadworthy and functional, and it has served us really well and it's growing on me each day. But we are considering the north after we're finished here in Tasmania, and we do think a more capable and robust kind of car would suit us a lot better and be a bit comfortable, safer, less terrified of breaking down. We definitely err on the side of free camps and low cost camps. We do run to a very strict budget just so we have more time to explore and actually travel rather than just working all of the time. So we keep our costs low, so we keep our work hours low, which means we look for camps that are free or low cost, preferably with at least a drop toilet and potentially like a beach or a river so we can like wash or shower. Our caravan has no toilet or showering facilities, and we have been known to go like up to 2 weeks, 10 days without a shower, which gets a little bit tedious at times. We're going through that right now, which is why my hair is the way it is. On the very rare occasion we will book into a caravan park just to have some facilities every now and again, to be able to do some laundry, have a hot shower, things like that. But most of the time we take advantage of water sources in towns where we can fill up and have a wash or whatever, and laundromats and things like that. Keeps our budget nice and tight. Finding the best camps has been mostly just like a wing it kind of adventure. We use Google Maps a lot and just kind of zoom in and be like, camps, where are they? Instagram's great, talking to people in the DMs and things like that who know where you are and what you're up to and can recommend places for you has been helpful. Friends and family are like a wealth of knowledge. Everyone knows something about somewhere you are. My dad is he has travelled a lot around Australia and knows a lot of like really cool and quirky places to go, so he's been really helpful. But otherwise it's pretty much just like a wing it, or use like the parks website wherever you are, like Parks Tas or Parks Vic, to find national park camps and things like that, because they are our favourites. We've stayed at so many camp spots, it's really hard to narrow down like our favourite camp spot, but in recent times we have adored the Cockle Creek Parks Tas campground down in the very south of Tasmania. It is just so diverse and so beautiful, and some incredible walks and animals. I love wildlife photography, so we really enjoy just hanging out there and photographing the quolls and the quokkas, not quokkas, paddymallons, I always get those two confused, and the beach there is just to die for. This might sound a little bit odd, but probably my favourite piece of advice for picking a caravan park or picking a camping spot, particularly in like the more naturey campgrounds like the national park campgrounds, is check like the way the sun moves to get the most warmth into your caravan, which is important here in Tasmania, but also the winds. We have been battered by winds, particularly in the sort of central Cradle Mountain area of Tasmania. Our caravan had its like longest side against the prevailing winds, and it just smacked us around for days. So if you are looking for just like a very niche piece of advice, check the weather before you set up to see what you're in for. Something that we know now that we didn't before we left for this specific lap of Australia is the whole work-life balance thing. It's really easy, particularly if you are remote workers or just someone who thrives on keeping a routine. When you go on your lap, it's kind of like immediately holiday, but because a lap is such a long-term thing, getting that balance of keeping your healthy routines and keeping up with work if you are working while you're traveling is super important. And it probably took me the last maybe 4 months to remember that, like, even though you're traveling, you've got to remember to like do your teeth, do some exercise, eat well, keep up with like the client work, and not be afraid to just like sit down and get some bloody work done, so then you can get out and see and do things without the stress of it. So just keeping up those normal routines and habits that you have at home in your lap of Australia is super important, just to keep you well and healthy and sane, because it can be a lot sometimes, and such long-term travel isn't always just a holiday. My favourite thing about travelling is just the break in the routine. I know I talked a lot about routine and keeping habits and things like that, but just the novelty of it just keeps life so interesting. The one thing I struggled most about when I was just working in an office and had a normal job up in the NT was being in the same place every day, going to the same place every day, kind of doing the same things every day. And as much as it's pretty chaotic, working and travelling and doing the lap with all of those requirements can be really stressful sometimes. I will never get over the fact that travel brings this beautiful novelty, and seeing different things each day and having the opportunity to meet different people each day, something I really appreciate that I didn't have in like pre-lap life. I don't think van life can ever be everything you think it's going to be, particularly with the prevalence of it on Instagram and social media and things like that. It really is a highlights reel, and I myself get really caught just posting the things that look beautiful, and sometimes you just got to stop and go, no, van life isn't everything you expect it's going to be. It is a lot of balance. It is a lot of like trying to maintain healthy routines. It's trying to maintain like relationships and taking care of each other and having time for each other in what can actually be like a really intense and stressful kind of time and place. So as much as I adore every second of it, and it is my preferred lifestyle choice, it is always challenging at times. The biggest van life myth is that everything looks beautiful and everything is organized and everything's like wonderfully aesthetic at all times. That's just not true, and it always just takes me a minute to remember that you live and work and survive inside of a tiny little space, and the beautiful aesthetic, beautifully lit vans you see on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, they're just not real. Like, that can't be real, and I just don't think it'll ever be real. If I spun the camera around right now, you would see like my breakfast dishes, my wet towels, like just crap everywhere. That is the biggest myth that I think most people have to come to terms with, is that it is a cramped space, it's a small space, and you've kind of got to let go of the aesthetics a little bit. Usually the scariest and funniest times happen at the same time, but you don't always realise it. And for us, it was actually pre-getting the caravan and getting ourselves down Central Australia, which I still think counts as the big lap, like we needed to get down there, but we were having so many car issues that we were having to limp our car from stop to stop. We were having battery issues, and we had to pull over the car every hour or so and just let it idle to like charge the batteries. I don't know what was happening, but we had to stop every hour from Darwin to Melbourne, which I'm sure you all know is a very long drive. And the whole time we were convinced we were never going to make it, and it really like brought us together as a couple. And it was scary because any minute we could just break down in the middle of the desert and just have no help, no idea how to get out of that situation. But at the same time, it was hilarious because we had to stop every hour on the side of the road, and it made us like just bond, just hang out, and actually get to see some weird places because we stopped in places you would never expect to stop. And the scary moments in van life do actually really frighten me, and I get very anxious about them. But those kinds of experiences where they are actually like funny and great stories to look back on make the whole thing worth it and make the scary times a little bit less scary. It's really hard to narrow down one specific item that we couldn't live without, but I would have to say it's kind of multiple items, but our entire electrical setup. My dad and my fiancé Chris did a phenomenal job putting the electrical system into this caravan, and the freedom it has given us to be able to work and be anywhere we want to be as long as there's like a tiny bit of sun shining and we have 100% batteries is incredible. It's given us so much freedom and so much peace of mind. That being said, we have no peace of mind about water because we have a 60-litre water tank. So as much as we're off-grid, we're also not off-grid. But a good power setup is 100% the most important thing, particularly if you are trying to work or create content or something while you're travelling. It's a fairly standard answer, but I think the biggest downside of doing a big lap is being away from friends and family and important moments. I think van life and big laps are so great that there's so few downsides. Obviously there's cramped spaces and, you know, the stress of it all. But the hardest part has been actually as a remote worker, still having all my wonderful colleagues in my workplaces, but not actually being at the events and the big things that happen in the workplace. Like, that's a very weird thing to miss, like, but it is a big downside to being a remote worker, is that you don't have the camaraderie of all of your work colleagues and work friends and work events and things like that, and I really miss that side of it. But on top of that, friends and family, not being there for weddings or birthdays or even just like Halloween parties and stuff that our friends up north throw, it's really, really hard not just being able to have a weekend and hang out with them and sort of break the routine of just being the two of us. As much as we love it, missing friends, family and colleagues and all of that is the hardest part for sure. Our financial plan for our big lap is incredibly open-ended and not that actually well thought out, except that we have trained ourselves over the last few years of working at a normal job and living in a normal apartment has been just spend as little as you can, which ultimately leads to working less, which we appreciate. We are somewhat privileged in a way to not have dependents or even pets. Like, we don't have anything else that requires our income except ourselves and our lifestyle, which is a big blessing, of course. But we didn't put together a proper financial plan or anything. We just really closely monitor what we spend and what we're spending it on, keep expenses as low as possible, and take work wherever we can get it. And again, we're super privileged to be remote workers, so we have enough income coming in to sustain our travels. So just to expand on that, the way we afford to travel is we do run our company. It's, graphic design, web development, photography, videography, digital marketing, all these things that I've spent the last 5 or so years of my life getting experience in and studying. I hold a master's in digital marketing and graphic design. My partner has tons of experience in web development, so those sorts of things have allowed us to keep working while we travel and keep building our business and things like that. We also have fantastic clients and colleagues who keep giving us work, which we're very happy about. We did also spend the last few years of our normal working lives saving up as much as we can and keeping our expenses super low. So it is partly savings, partly client work, other work, whatever work we can get really, that go together to help us travel. We'll pull into savings if we need like a big chunk of cash to do something very specific. Otherwise, the money we make through our business sustains us in the day-to-day with food and fuel and accommodation costs and things like that. On average, we aim to spend approximately about $500 per week. I'm hoping that will sound low to a lot of people because we do try to keep it super low. Might sound high to others. I don't think we could get that any lower if we tried. But the things we spend money on predominantly are food and fuel. Those are costs that we just can't get any lower. Our accommodation costs are incredibly low outside of the purchase of the caravan. Our average at the moment is about $7 per night. On accommodation, and that is using national park camps, free camps, those kinds of things. On the rare occasion we will do a house sit when we need to get a big project finished and we just need some stability, and they have been fantastic because they are completely free. Otherwise we don't often have budget blowouts. Occasionally the business will need an investment, like a new piece of, we had to buy new laptops recently. We do need to pull from savings, and that does increase our weekly expenditure. But just travel stuff, it's approximately $500 per week, which we're pretty proud of. Well, this will sound pretty crazy, but we don't actually kind of ever splurge. We keep things quite tight, and as much as that sounds a bit depressing, we kind of like it that way. We find really cheap activities to do. We're massively into hiking, and hiking's basically free. Tech-wise, our biggest splurge has been laptops and electrical systems because they were just an absolute requirement for us to be able to do what we do. But other than that, our biggest splurge was getting the Spirit of Tasmania ticket over here and actually getting a room to sleep in, which I thought was pretty bougie, instead of just sleeping in the lounge chairs. And while we've been in Tasmania, we did one railway ticket ride thing in Queenstown, which was like $80. So we are pretty like shoestring travellers. To be completely honest, we haven't actually bought anything that we haven't really used because we stick to a tight schedule and a shoestring budget. We don't buy anything until we know we really need it, or we've been craving it for such a long time that it's just time to buy it. We've brought a lot of things on our travels from home that we haven't really needed. Our bikes is one of them. We have some inflatable kayaks, which I wish we had more time to use, but we just get very busy and the weather in Tassie isn't that conducive to doing like kayaking and stuff. I have a blender that we've literally never used. So I think our list of things we've brought that we don't use is way longer than the list of things we actually went out and paid money for that we thought we'd need but didn't. So I think the key message there is just wait until you realise you need something and then go buy it. The great thing about Australia is without too much of a drive, you'll end up in a town that has a shop to get what you need. So start with less and maybe build up your collection as you go. This will sound a little bit cheesy, but out of all of that I've just told you, the biggest piece of advice I think I could give anyone planning a lap is it doesn't have to all make sense before you leave. I think creating a list of the essentials that you need to be a happy, healthy person on your lap of Australia is all you need, and beyond that, in terms of like equipment and activities and places to see and how much you really need to stretch your budget, just let those things come naturally. Get on the road, get moving, get a bit of experience under your belt, and then start making some of those decisions that you might think you have to make before you leave for your trip. One of those is equipment. Another one is budget. Like if you feel like you're blowing through your money too fast, just take a step back and think about where you can cut. If you are feeling too tight and stingy, which we actually have a problem with, we have to stop and go, okay, we need a pub trip today. So we'll go out to the pub and get something actually decent to eat. So just go slow, take it easy, don't overthink it, but keep mental notes or a bit of a diary in your first few months of travel to really work out how you're feeling, what you need, what kind of changes you need to feel most comfortable in your lap, because that's the important part. You can't have a good time unless you're happy. Don't overthink it. Keep a journal, work out how you're feeling, what you need, what you don't need, and just try to keep that like mental freedom and clarity. I always say, just stay sane. Do what it takes to stay sane and you'll be able to enjoy your trip a whole lot more.